In today's video, we are going to discuss how Enzo Maresca will tweak his tactics in order to exploit this Tottenham lineup from Ange Postecoglou. Chelsea versus Tottenham match preview. How can Chelsea break down Tottenham? We're going to go over it in this video. To begin with, let's get the stats out of the way. Tottenham are holding the second most possession in the league with 59.5%, only behind Manchester City with 63%. We sit in fourth with that 56th percentile, taking over Southampton in recent weeks. Then you have shots per game. Tottenham again, near the top, pretty much joint second with Bournemouth on 15.6. We have climbed that table as well, up into 15.2 now, in fifth in the league. And then shots conceded, they're doing very well as well with the 11.7, only conceding 11.7 shots per game. Although last night against Bournemouth, as I'm recording this on the Friday, they did concede, I think it was something like 21 shots. So they're definitely there for the taking, and especially with the personnel they're going to have available, which we're going to speak about in this video. Chelsea, again, we've moved down in this table massively, which is a huge, I think, indictment of how good we've been defensively. And I think a lot of people are sort of sleeping on that because maybe the clean sheets they've not been there, and we've had the odd mistake from Sanchez, and we've had a few sort of errors. But I think overall, as a unit, I think we're defensively so much better. We're a much better pressing outfit. We're much better in a block, and we're also just far better in terms of winning our duels physically when we do force that ball long. So the stats line up well. However, this game is going to be an interesting one because it is at Tottenham's ground. And as you can see, they do hold a lot of possession. So what I'm expecting is almost Chelsea to let them have a little bit of the ball, sort of like the Southampton first half, where Southampton had a little bit more of the ball, and to almost have their plan around when Spurs have the ball. Of course, when Chelsea do build up from the back, there will also be that plan in place. We know what we're going to see, and we're going to speak about that on the tactics board. But without further ado, let's have a quick look how Tottenham will play. So I've got put this up on screen first because we're going to talk about two pressing systems for Tottenham. You've got this 4-2 at the front, so almost a 4-2-4. Again, something that you see with the wingers tucking in nice and tight inside. These two, so the number 10, Kulusevski in this case, pushing up alongside Solanke to form that front two. And then you've got a little bit of a stretched pivot with Sarr, and I think this is Bentancur at the time. However, if we go on to this sort of image, you can see that at times they will also press with this sort of diamond a little bit deeper. So you'll have, again, one of the pivots slightly deeper off, as they are here. And then you could say these are the three. So you could also call this a 2-3-1. We'll get to that in a minute, though. This is how they build up. They will very much stretch that back two. Again, Vicario used to be involved. Now it's Forster. He will still be involved in and around sort of like off screen, if you can see my arrow. But these two players, they do split very wide. So if that ball is lost, there's a good chance to penetrate in between those two. And we're going to speak about that a bit more on the tactics board. But we will see formations of this 2-3 build-up. And again, Kulusevski, or one of the eights, will usually drift in and around here. So you could even call it sometimes a 2-3-2-3, where the sort of two number eights drift in these central pockets to receive the ball. And again, we're going to speak about it a little bit more on the tactics board. But you do see a lot of rotation between these so you got the number eights, but also the fullbacks. And in this case, Matasar is actually pushed into here, and a doggy is pushed into that half space. Those rotations are something Spurs are very well known for under Ange, and it's something Chelsea have got to be sort of on the lookout for in their defensive scheme. Pressing from goal kicks, very much like Chelsea's, very much one striker, four behind. What they do is Tottenham is they do put both of their wingers very high to begin with, and this happened in a lot of games. Pretty much, if you look at the 18-yard box, all four of these players will be within those 18-yard lines, and they'll be quite compact. Both wingers looking to, again, travel towards their wing. So, again, here, cover here, Son covering here, as the ball is in travel. So, Solanke's trapping one side of the pitch. You've got the two number eights pushing onto the double pivot players, and then sort of double coverage for the wingers where they can apply pressure on the ball here if they need to, and they can also get out to here. And again, Son, if that ball somehow gets past Solanke into here, he can apply pressure and he can also come into this area. So that is how they press from goal kicks, and very much how Chelsea press from goal kicks. Solanke is very good at this, so there is going to be a way that I suggest that we look to sort of almost bypass this part of the press. Again, we'll speak about it on the tactics board. This is what I mean when I say that sort of 2-3-2-3, because you got the wingers, you got Solanke just here, and then you got somebody out of here. I think it's Son out of picture. Then you got a doggy, and again forming that sort of two. split centre backs. Then you've got the three with the two inverted, and then you've got those two as well, Matasar, and Kulusevski. So almost that 2-3-2-3. And we're going to speak about how they use that in build up. Again, as I said, sort of double coverage, being able to apply pressure on the ball, Solanke dropping off one side of the pitch. That's going to be key in this game. But again, when they drop off, they do play in this 4-1-4-1, which is how I've sort of tried to describe Chelsea's press at times this season. Because what you'll often see is one of Chelsea's pivot players, I often say Enzo, but it has been Lavia at times, alongside Palmer in these sort of roles. You have Jackson on his own pressing, and then you have the two wingers. Tottenham do this very much as well, leaving the one man to cover both sides. What this means is if you've got players in those pockets arriving, one of the defenders has to come out. I mean, in this case, a doggy is actually pushed all the way up onto Garnacho. Again, they're man for man, they're trying to squeeze and not let them out. But again, out of picture, you've also got the defenders ready to be aggressive. And that's going to be very important, is trying to initiate the defenders and make them push out. Because we know that their personnel at the back isn't as strong as it usually is. They don't have Van de Ven, they don't have Romero. So you almost want to initiate their defenders to come out and be aggressive, because Jackson could have an advantage given that space if he can draw those defenders out. And again, we'll speak about who they are going to be a bit soon. This is, again, that same sort of diamondy shape. So you got Kulusevski, he drops a tiny bit deeper than the other number 8, who would be, I think, Matasar again, or somebody in here just off screen. But you got Bentancur, you got the two inverted fullbacks. So if you take Kulusevski out, you've got the 2 at the back and the 3, that 2-3 base shape with the inverted fullbacks. Again, Forster would be, but Vicario getting involved, making that sort of a back 3 at times. And then Kulusevski looking to drop in and link play. Probably been their best player this season for me. Again, you see this 4-1, but this is what I mean when it comes to that double coverage. Because of how aggressive, got him being aggressive on the pivot, him being aggressive on the pivot. These guys trying to, again, apply that double coverage to these wide centre-backs and wingers that are going to be all like wide options, which means Bentancur in here, he's got 2 men. So if he applies to one, the other man's going to be free. Especially, and this is something Chelsea can look to exploit, as I said, especially due to the defensive personnel and their ability to be aggressive in those pockets of space. Same again, just another example. And of course, we all know about the high line, but I thought I'd just quickly sort of put it into picture of when they're even in this 4-1-4-1, you've got the 1, the 4, the 1, and then you've got the back 4. If there's no pressure on the ball, you can play that ball over the top. And again, if they're going to be playing like this, which they will, because it's Ange's style of play, and he's very sort of stuck and he's cutthroat to that play. I personally think that's a good thing. It's not always a good thing, but I do think with Ange, I think he's being quite harshly criticised. I do like Ange as a manager. However, I do think we can use this massively to our advantage, of course, with the players that we've got, because you do have the runners such as Neto, Jackson, Madueke, who can get in behind. And that's why I would be playing both Neto and Madueke. But stick around to understand why we're going to do that. I'm going to do it on the tactics board in a minute. Again, that same sort of shape. Like I say, the 2, the 3, these time a little bit stretched with the 3 inverted. And then you got Kulusevski and Maddison both sort of drifting in this hole. Kulusevski will often look to kind of link play in there, again, using his body quite well to sort of receive the ball with his back to play and then make something happen from that zone. Again, that 4-1, again, as you can see, look, inside the 18-yard lines, they're trying to really compact this double pivot. You can't play through, you have to go over the top, and that's where they want to be aggressive. So that's where we're going to have to beat Tottenham in this case, because I do think they've still got a very sort of good front 5 unit to be able to press Chelsea effectively. And I think Solanke is absolutely excellent at it, to the point where it should be avoidable. Again, that 4-1-4-1 shape just being sort of highlighted. You've got both these players here. In this case, he's actually not with either, so the centre-backs have got to reply to either or. And again, you've got space on the outside of the block for the wingers as well, or the full-backs in this case. So it is very interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see how Chelsea look to navigate this 4-2-4/4-4, 4-1-4-1 press. Again, this is a bit of a longer sort of scheme that you can see. I'll leave that on screen for a second just so you can sort of view it with a whole landscape of the pitch. And I think that is it. So without further ado, let's get into the tactics board and discuss how Chelsea can exploit this Tottenham team. Which leads us on to the tactics board. Brilliant. Let's have a little look how Chelsea could line up. So as you can see on screen, sort of put this into a formation I think Tottenham could set up in. So again, we'll move these around to show how they'll sort of press and how Chelsea could set up. Now, a few things to mention. Firstly, Badiashile I put in at right centre-back. Now, obviously, off the ball, Gusto would be right back, and Badiashile and Colwill would be the centre-back too. this could be different, but I'm going off the fact that Tosin and Disasi played midweek. I think I have said this all season. I do think Maresca quite likes Badiashile. I think he likes him on the ball. I think he likes that he can be aggressive and the way that he can win his duels and sort of almost with that calm fashion. The one thing that does slightly worry me is Badiashile has to be even more aggressive when he's next to Colwell, because Colwell's used to having that bit more aggressor next to him with Wesley Fofana. But I do think he's done well when he's come into this team. Badiashile, I think he's been better when he comes in next to a Levi Colwell than when he's been playing in the Conference League team, for example, next to the likes of Tosin and Disasi. So that's what I think we're going to do. I do think that could be an issue on the ball in terms of being a pressing trigger, but I do also think that Badiashile is fairly good on the ball in the sense of disguise and weight of pass compared to someone like Disasi. So even though it's going to be his wrong foot, I do think he'll be able to find those angles a little bit better using his wrong foot, just using that sort of element of disguise rather than Disasi, who's a little bit more broadcast. And yes, he's on his correct foot with his right foot, but he's a little bit more broadcast. And it did cause some issues for us against Bournemouth in the first half, having him sort of on the ball in this area because of how broadcast he was and teams being able to trap us to one side under Disasi. I don't think that will be the case fully with Badiashile. The other thing to obviously mention, and this is a bold call, and I'm completely fine with him playing this game because I think he's been in excellent form. And people of this channel that have been here a while will know I'm the biggest Enzo Fernandez fan, the biggest Enzo Fernandez fan. I absolutely love him. I think he's such a good footballer, and I'm so glad he plays for the club. But I wouldn't start him in this game because I think where Tottenham can hurt us is, like I've sort of said, making it a bit of a scrap, making it and just winning those duels. And I think you go for the double protection in here, and even more than just the double protection, because you could start Casado at right back again and invert him in, which could actually happen. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that, and I wouldn't even hate it. But I would be starting Gusto in this game purely for that just little bit of extra protection in these sort of counter-pressing moments. And I just think he'd be really important in this zone. So I would be starting Gusto for that reason, which means no Enzo Fernandez, because I feel like we need these two in that pocket to protect, and especially with the likes of Sarr, Basuma, I think it's going to be those duels that you win in there are going to be very important. The back four, quite a key thing to talk about for Tottenham. They are missing, obviously, as I said earlier, Van de Ven, Romero, but they're also now missing Ben Davies, who got injured last night against Bournemouth. So Archie Gray looks like he's going to step into the back line, which means, sort of as I was saying earlier, when they press, which I'm going to put out on screen now, when they press, they're probably going to almost look to do that 4-1-4-1. So Solanke is going to be here. I think these two are going to be very aggressive on the pivot, as we said earlier. Let me take the arrow off. These two could be very aggressive with these two, which means Basuma has got two options. Now, let's be honest. Basuma is going to follow Cole Palmer, or he might. I did have sort of a suspicion that he could put Sarr on him, and I think if Palmer was on this side, we could actually see Sarr drop off a bit deeper. That's one other thing that I could think we could see. But we're going to go with this for now because of how I think Chelsea could set up with Gusto, and that's how we're predicting it. If Basuma then follows him out here, Gusto is in this space, which means now one of these two players has to jump to Gusto. They have to. So you're either going to have a free Madueke running at the box, which is a huge threat. One, because he's been in amazing direct form in terms of goals, assists, and just being direct with his runs. But also, I just think athletically, I think he could cause a massive issue. Same for Neto on this side, which means as well, Jackson going to have that pocket to run into. I think Gray is the most likely to push out into these scenarios. But again, it could be a doggy. Gray could sort of cover. I think that's where Chelsea can really cause some issues against this Tottenham lineup. So I really would like to see, and it might not be the game where Palmer is absolutely everything. It's sort of one of those games, I know Palmer said it in an interview the other day, where he's not as bothered about the goals, the assists at the minute, but it's just the impact he can have for the team. And I do think that this could well be one of those games where he has to almost sacrifice himself and allow other players to be the free men and impact the game. Of course, that still means Palmer could still bag 2 goals. Like, Palmer's Palmer. He has moments of quality from anywhere on the pitch. But I do think this is how I would set up this game. And again, just to quickly touch on it, with their on-ball sort of setup where they split these two quite wide. They'll have Basuma, they'll have Porro, they'll have a doggy. They would have almost a little bit like this. Chelsea would look to press, again, in a man-to-man fashion. We'll put this into sort of a back four to begin with. Again, you've got a double up here. Caicedo would be in here. Lavia would probably press on to someone like Kulusevski. Palmer, again, he'll sort of play in this hole, maybe on Basuma. And again, you've got two players ready to sort of press here. But the point of this, the point of showing this, and again, you've got sort of got these double coverages for all these players in here, making that sort of a 3v3. But if these players look to form those rotations here and here at times, if those rotations are even slightly off, big spaces here, and if these guys come even wider to deal with those spaces, look at Nicholas Jackson. So I do think that Chelsea will let Tottenham have the ball. If they win it back, there's multiple areas that you can hurt them, especially with the athleticism of Madueke, Jackson and Neto as a front three. And I think there's multiple ways of pressing this Tottenham side in terms of letting them have the ball. Again, Lavia and Palmer sort of being the ones to trigger that press when and as they feel fit. Palmer can, of course, he'll be a little bit more aggressive, pushing forward at times, maybe to apply pressure on Gray, where Madueke comes off with a doggy. And it will be an interesting one where can those rotations between a doggy and Sarr, as I said, there's negatives to it if Chelsea can win the ball back, but like for Tottenham, there's negatives. But on the same side, if Tottenham can pull off those rotations, that it will cause Chelsea some issues. So they do have to be switched on in terms of when they go to press, which against Villa, for example, was excellent. Jackson was leading the press so well. The two in behind Jackson in these central areas doing really well to follow Jackson when it mattered and to actually trigger the press as one unit and win the ball back in dangerous areas. So we want to see a lot more of that in this game. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions, but that is where I'll be looking to exploit Tottenham in this game, and that is how I think Chelsea can come away with another 3 points and continue that climb as we sit in second place in the Premier League currently. Please do drop a like to support the channel. The next video on the channel is going to be a combined XI for the Tottenham and Chelsea players, more or less based on this season, but we'll explain it in the video. So please do drop a like, support the channel on all these stuff. And on Sunday, we'll also be back with how Chelsea got on with the things we learned. So support the channel, subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know down in the comments what you think the score will be. Leave your predictions down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.